How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America, and I am delighted to have you with me. The phone number is 877-973-7425 if you want to be on the program. If you text Army to 33777, you can get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, all that. By the way, those of you out in Oklahoma, if you go to the krmg.com website, wait, let me make sure I got the krmg.com website in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you scroll down, you will see join us for the KRMG Eric Erickson experience. And they use that old terrible picture of me. Nobody's got a better one. Oh, I hate that picture. There's a story there. Nonetheless, you click that link, and my friends, you can see me live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Thursday after the election at 4 p.m. On South Yale Avenue at Puck Sports Bar and Grill at the Wee Street Ice Center, 4 to 6. You got to register to come. It's free, but you got to register to come. Why? Crowd maintenance. We don't want to overwhelm them. We certainly would love to have I would certainly love to have you there. All you have to do is go to krmg.com, scroll down. You'll see the KRMG Eric Erickson experience, and you can come. Just need to register. You can submit questions as well. I will take your questions 2 days after the election, November 7th at 4 p.m. in Tulsa. Now, have to move on. We got other stuff to talk about besides me. Kamala Harris is desperate to get black men to vote for her. Tangent. You know, the Democrats' big fear here is not that black men will vote for Donald Trump. They can't fathom that significant numbers of black men will go vote for Donald Trump. What they are scared of is that they will stay home. Because black voters in this country have a historic propensity when they don't like the Democrat, they don't vote Republican, they just stay home. And it's something that could be happening, and they're worried about it. So she went on Charlemagne's show. Now, Charlemagne, for those of you conservatives, you probably remember after the George Floyd situation, Rush Limbaugh and him had an extended conversation. They both work for Premier, iHeart, syndication, same group, and he went on that show. It is probably the foremost show for black men listening in this country, around the country. It's everywhere. Kamala Harris went on. He's a Democrat. He's supporting Harris, gave her airtime. And there is a real dichotomy, a real split in the black male vote for Kamala Harris. The younger the voter who is black, the more likely he is to vote for Donald Trump. And what's notable is we're seeing the same pattern play out among black voters as everyone else. It's the American split. It's not the racial split. If you do not have a college degree, you are far more likely to vote for Donald Trump than if you have a college degree. It doesn't matter whether you're black, white, male, female, Hispanic, you name it. Non-college educated voters more likely to vote for Donald Trump. If you have a bachelor's degree, you are kind of split. If you have a post-grad degree, you're overwhelmingly likely to vote for Kamala Harris and be progressive. There's a real educational divide in the country. Now, before we get to what Kamala Harris said, I want to play an exchange that happened on CNN. A friend of mine, colleague from my flagship station, WSB Radio. also has guest hosted for me here. Shelley Winter was on CNN. And for those of you listening on radio and not the live stream, I'm going to play this clip. The host, when he says what he says, her jaw drops that he said it. Not only does her jaw drop, the other guest goes into just a spitting mad rage at what Shelley Winter says. And all Shelley Winters did is quote Malcolm X in the division in the community of black men. That's it. They act like this is something he's come up with and it's deeply racist. He's literally quoting and even says that he's quoting Malcolm X. But boy, does it hit them like a ton of bricks.
All right, look, let me boil this election down in the African-American community to a very simple, I'll reference the great Malcolm X. This race is between House African-Americans and field African-Americans. And the field African-Americans are going for Donald Trump. I'm talking about your men. I'm talking about your men who build, your men who put things together, your men who work with their hands, your men who do things, not the men who push paper, or the men who are connected to power and want to continue to be connected to power.
Are you denigrating African-American men who are professionals who work in white-collar jobs? Is that what I'm hearing from you? Or
no.
I'm just trying to understand, is Shelley the House one or the field woman? I'm just trying to understand that part. I'm just trying to understand. We have someone who's spitting. I'm just trying to understand the one that's spitting talking points right now. Are you the House Negro or the field Negro that you're referring to? So I just want to make sure your question was about denigrating black people. That literally was your question. You have a Republican fool who is talking right now about. You literally just said that black men. You actually just said this is an election about House or field. This is the nonsense that we are listening to right now by those that are supporting Donald Trump.
Y'all, they didn't like it. They were deeply offended by his point. You know what I'm offended by? The specific discussion about black men, period. Because they're voting like working class men. It has nothing to do with race. And the sick obsession in the media with race right now, when it doesn't matter if you're a black man, a Hispanic man, a white man, or an Asian man. If you're working class, you're voting for Donald Trump. And do you know why? Because the professional classes in this country have lost touch with everyone else. The professional classes in this country live in a little bubble where their world is fine. If you have a post-grad degree in this country, you are far less likely than anyone else to ever suffer unemployment. If you have a postgraduate degree in this country, you are far more likely to live in an economically privileged area where you haven't had the rampant inflation everyone else has had. If you have a postgraduate degree, you are far more likely to believe that boys can compete in girls' sports as long as it's not in your school. If you have a postgraduate degree in this country, you are perfectly fine keeping poor people in government-run schools while your kids go to fancy schools and they get a competitive advantage against everyone else. If you have a postgraduate degree in this country, you are very, very likely to believe in the legacy system of colleges that gets your kid an advanced line into the door of a prestigious institution ahead of every working-class family that's busted their butt to send their kid to college. You don't care about everyone else. In fact, if you have a postgraduate degree in this country, you believe that the working class and the middle class of this country should have to make burdensome sacrifices on their lifestyle to fight climate change that you yourself will never have to make. If you have a postgraduate degree in this country, you are overwhelmingly likely to believe that everyone else in this country should be burdened by things you will never have to be burdened by in order to save the planet that you're convinced you're saving by doing jack. That's all that's happening in this country right now. Black men, white men, Asian men, Hispanic men, men from Mars, women from Venus. If they don't have a post-grad degree, they're voting for Donald Trump because they look on these people on CNN who drip with disdain for them and they hate them back. And they know that Donald Trump is on their side and Kamala Harris is on the side of the people who drip with disdain for them. Shelley Winter literally is quoting Malcolm X, and these people act like he just spoke crap to from the planet Nanu. Nanu. He's quoting Malcolm X, who himself was making a comment among those people better off in the black community from those who were busting their butts working class jobs in this great divide. And Kamala Harris is desperate to get those men in the working class black community. And you know what she's saying? I'll legalize weed for you. Is that not the most damnably racist thing you ever heard? If Donald Trump came out tomorrow and said, hey, black men, I'm going to legalize weed if you vote for me, the media would crucify him as a racist. You think these black men just want to get high? That's how you think they're going to vote for you? That's what the white people around Kamala Harris told her to do, because these progressive post-grad white people advising Kamala Harris don't know anything about the black community like Kamala Harris, who grew up in Canada. And that's part of the problem, is that you talk to black people in this country in the barbershop, go over to Columbia, South Carolina, to the local Waffle House and have this conversation, or have it here where I live in Macon, Georgia. And do you know what you hear from your black friends in the Waffle House in Macon, Georgia? Kamala Harris isn't one of them. Her father is a Jamaican from a family of slave owners. Her mother's from India, and she grew up in Canada. The white people at CNN and MSNBC don't seem to know this thing, but every black person I know does. They don't think she has the lived experience they've had. So they're not really inclined to vote for her other than partisan affiliation. If they're Democrat, diehard Democrat, yes, they're going to vote for her. If they're not, if they're a low propensity voter, they might not. They kind of like Donald Trump. They don't like her. So now you got her out there saying that she will support reparations. She got asked the question on Charlemagne, the God show. This is what she said in response to someone asking if she would support reparations.
Yes, I am running to be a president for all Americans. That being said, I do have clear eyes about the disparities that exist and the context in which they exist, meaning history, to your point. So my agenda, well, first of all, on the point of reparations, it has to be studied. There's no question about that. And I've been very clear about that position.
She's going to study it. She doesn't mean she's going to do it. You and I both know she's not going to do it. But what is her other plan? She wants loans that will specifically go to black men. That would be unconstitutional. And here's the thing. Kamala Harris apparently thinks that black men in this country are too stupid to know that that would be unconstitutional. You cannot, as a matter of policy in the federal government, give loans to a class of people based on their race. It's unconstitutional. And yet that's what she's proposing. Does she think black men are stupid? She's clearly disrespecting them. This is kind of a wild thing. But my deep frustration, my real frustration, is we keep making this a racial divide. It's not. It's working class versus highly educated. And I want to say something here. I am highly educated. I have an undergraduate degree with a double major and a minor. Graduated with honors. I have a postgraduate doctoral degree. Graduated with honors. I'm headed towards another postgrad degree in theology. I'm highly educated. And I got to tell you, the dumbest people I know are the ones with the most college degrees. Not a lick of common sense and prone to the perversions of the world. I would rather hang out with a plumber or an electrician than with someone who went to the Ivy League and got a doctorate, because those people are dripping with neuroses and anxieties, and they think the only way to cure their neuroses and anxiety is to impact everyone else and apply their own neuroses through public policy and impose it on the rest of the world. I would far rather hang out with the plumber and the electrician who just want to be left alone than with the neurotic Harvard grad who thinks that the rest of the world has to suffer through his neuroses as well for him to get along and feel normal. Absolutely not. Those people are miserable, miserable people. And the fact that the media wants to talk about this as a racial divide when it's an education divide, and who among us wants to hang out with the petty woman with the bob haircut who went to Harvard and wants to be called a doctor even though she's an educator, who insists that her neuroses have to be applied as public policy to everyone else? No one. And that's why black men are voting for Donald Trump, because they're men, not because they're black. And they're tired of these awfuls, affluent white female urban liberals imposing their will on the rest of us. Greetings, welcome. It's Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, Chris, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show.
Professor Eric, thank you so much for taking my call. I do have a question for you. I'm thinking about 2022 and the red wave that never happened. Any thoughts right now? Because I know all the pundits are leaning R, and I'm just a little concerned. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. So I will tell you, my view is it was Schrodinger's wave. You know, Schrodinger's cat, if you see the cat, he's dead. If you don't see the cat, he's alive. It's very much the same way. There was actually a red wave in 2022. It just happened to be in places we weren't looking. So Long Island flipped completely from Democrat to Republican. Not a single elected official in the congressional delegation in Long Island. Southern California wiped out the Democrats in Congress, overwhelmed them with Republicans. So there absolutely was a red wave in parts of the country. The problem is we were expecting it in places like Florida. We were expecting it in places like Georgia. We were expecting it in these other places, and it didn't happen. Women in particular went out and they voted Democrat as a protest vote on abortion, from what we can gather, among other things. And 13% of Republicans voted Democrat. Here's what the data is telling us now. If you go back to 2022, the media polling showed the red wave disappear in August. It was actually the Trafalgars of the world, the Rasmussens of the world that kept it alive. And all of us, myself included, were like, I don't believe the media polls, I believe Trafalgar. Well, it turns out the media polls were right. This year, the media polls continue to show a tied race, and a tied race benefits Donald Trump. Why? Because you're far more likely to undercount a Republican working class voter who doesn't answer the phone if they don't know who's calling. And Democrats want to tell everyone they're voting for Kamala Harris. And they're skewing the polls. So I think it gives Trump an advantage. But it is right now technically a tied race. Now, I want you to run Division Computers. Call them at 404-COMPUTE and tell them you need a computer if you need one. Instead of going to the big box store, one of those online sites where you got to determine how much RAM you want and how much GPU you want and what sort of monitor you want, you got to call Vision, and you actually work with someone who is a human being who speaks English and will actually tell you, yeah, you don't necessarily need this GPU for what you're doing. You can save some money, or this will last you a lot longer, and their computers are going to last you. And then you get their world-class 5-star reviewed service for free. So if you ever have a question, you call a special number. They answer the phone instead of putting you in call waiting hell. And they tell you what to do. They can even remote in. They can do email support, printer support, so much more. Now, let's say you're listening to this. You're like, I've already got a computer, but man, I could use their tech support. Well, for $179 a year, you can get their tech support, and you get that secret number, and you call that number, and they answer the phone without putting you on hold or making you wait or sending you to voicemail, and they help you with your computer. Call them at 404-COMPUTE. If you tell them Eric sent you, you're going to save even more money. VisionComputers.com or 404-COMPUTE. Any one of you nationwide can do this. Greetings, my friends. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. I am happy to have you. Y'all, I wanted to talk about the story yesterday, but got overwhelmed by other stuff, and I want to squeeze it in here because it's very important. Here's the headline for the Wall Street Journal. Mystery drones swarmed a U.S. military base for 17 days. The Pentagon is stumped. U.S. officials don't know who is behind the drones that have flown unhindered over sensitive national security sites or how to stop them. Let me read you some. This is wild stuff. Just listen to this. U.S. Air Force General Mark Kelly wasn't sure what to make of reports that a suspicious fleet of unidentified aircraft had been flying over Langley Air Force Base on Virginia's shoreline. Kelly, a decorated senior commander at the base, got on a squadron rooftop to see for himself. He joined a handful of other officers responsible for a clutch of the nation's most advanced jet fighters, including F-22 Raptors. For several nights, military personnel had reported a mysterious breach of restricted airspace over a stretch of land that has one of the largest concentrations of national security facilities in the United States. The show usually starts 45 minutes to an hour after sunset, another senior leader told Kelly. The first drone arrived shortly. Kelly, a career fighter pilot, estimated it was roughly 20 feet long and flying at more than 100 miles an hour at an altitude of 3,000 to 4,000 feet. Other drones followed, one by one, sounding in the distance like a parade of lawnmowers. The drones headed south over Chesapeake Bay towards Norfolk, Virginia, and over an area that included the home base for the Navy SEALs Team 6 and Naval Station Norfolk, the world's largest naval port. Officials didn't know if the drone fleet, which numbered as many as a dozen or more over the following nights, belonged to clever hobbyists or hostile forces. Some suspected that Russia or China deployed them to test the response of U.S. forces. Federal law prohibits the military from shooting down drones near military bases in the U.S. unless they pose an imminent threat. Aerial snooping doesn't qualify, though some lawmakers hope to give the military greater leeway. Reports of the drones reached President Biden and set off 2 weeks of White House meetings after the aircraft first appeared in December last year. Officials from agencies, including the Defense Department, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Pentagon's UFO office, joined outside experts to throw out possible explanations, as well as ideas about how to respond. Drone incursions into restricted airspace were already worrying national security officials. 2 months earlier, in October 2023, 5 drones flew over a government site used for nuclear weapons experiments. The Energy Department's Nevada National Security site outside Las Vegas detected 4 of the drones over 3 days. Employees spotted a 5th. U.S. officials said they didn't know who operated the drones in Nevada. Previously unreported incursion, or for what reason. A spokeswoman said the facility has since upgraded a system to detect and counter the drones. The sightings revealed the dilemma of defending against drones on U.S. soil compared with the ease of deploying or battling them abroad. Drones have become a deadly and cost-effective tool of war, capable of carrying surveillance gear, explosives, or lethal chemicals, yet shooting down suspicious aircraft over the U.S. risks disrupting or endangering the lives of Americans the military has sworn to protect. Early last year, a suspected Chinese spy balloon crammed with electronic surveillance gear floated across the country for 8 days, while military leaders waited for it to reach a spot isolated enough to shoot it down safely. 10 months later, the phalanx of drones appeared at Langley. Over 17 days, the drones arrived at dusk, flew off, and circled back. Some shone small lights, making them look like a constellation moving in the night sky, or a science fiction movie, Kelly said. Close encounters at Langley. They also were nearly impossible to track, vanishing each night despite a wealth of resources deployed to catch them. General Glenn Van Herk, at the time commander of the U.S. Northern Command and the North American Aerospace Defense Command, said drones had for years been spotted flying around defense installations, but the nightly swarms over Langley were unlike past incursions. Y'all, I go back to a particular paragraph that is infuriating to me. Federal law prohibits the military from shooting down drones near military bases in the U.S. unless they pose an imminent threat. Aerial snooping doesn't qualify. I have to tell you the truth. If I were the commander-in-chief of the American military, I would tell them to shoot down the drones because they pose an imminent threat. I can't believe they didn't. They wound up arresting a Chinese tourist who probably wasn't a Chinese tourist. They didn't believe that hobbyists did it because of the complexity of the operation. They flew in a pattern, 1 or 2 fixed-wing drones positioned more than 100 feet in the air, small quadcopters the size of 20-pound commercial drones, often below and flying slower. Sometimes they hovered. They came from the north around 6 p.m., They circled around. They worked with the FAA. They worked with others. They worked with the Coast Guard. And people say, oh, we can't do that. People could get hurt. We can't shoot them down. They could get in the way of planes. We can't do this. We can't do that. They were so scared of collateral damage. This kept going on. There's no deterrence whatsoever. In fact, they canceled nighttime training missions because they were worried with collisions from the drone. They moved the F-22s to different bases. I am sorry. By the way, intelligence officials spotted a vessel floating in international waters off the coast of Virginia and suspected a connection. Coast Guard crews boarded the vessel but found no computers or other gear to support the hunch. Now, there was a Chinese guy they arrested. They put him in jail. They think he was doing something, but they don't actually think he was responsible for all of these. We got the balloon over the United States, and this, y'all, they should be shot down. They should be shot down. The government did nothing. If it was outside the United States, they would have responded. We have hamstrung the American military in the United States, and our enemies are taking advantage of it. Look at the border, by the way. This ties to the border. We have these wild incursions in the United States from these drones that are flying over sensitive military installations. And we've got terrorists coming into this country from abroad, crossing the border and being let in. And now there's this, remember the terrorist from Afghanistan who was arrested last week? This was the big breaking news when I started the show. Big breaking news, terrorist living in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, from Afghanistan, plotting with ISIS to do an election day terrorist hit. Jackie Heinrich from Fox News is reporting this now. The Biden administration now admits that an Afghan national accused of plotting an election day terror attack did not undergo certain vetting they previously claimed he had passed. Nasser Ahmad Tawhidi was never vetted or approved by the State Department for special immigrant status, despite officials from other agencies claiming that he cleared that stringent process. Additionally, sources familiar with the investigation tell Fox News that Nasser Ahmad Tawhidi was not well known to the U.S. government when the administration facilitated his departure to the U.S., despite his security role with the CIA in Afghanistan. Fox has learned Tawhidi was employed as a local guard outside the base perimeter, and he would not have been among the most thoroughly vetted partners. The news upends claims officials made last week that Tawhidi was vetted 3 times to work for the CIA in Afghanistan, to come to the U.S. on DHS humanitarian parole, and when he was approved for special immigration status after arriving in the United States. Officials now acknowledge Tawhidi was never vetted or approved for special immigrant status, a thorough State Department process which can take years to complete. The State Department has maintained all along it had no role in his refugee status, despite what a Department of Homeland Security case agent told investigators, leading to inaccurate mentions in the Department of Justice criminal complaint. Last week, by the way, the Biden administration defended the error and explained that when he entered through the Department of Homeland Security, they did their own vetting process. Turns out that didn't happen either. He was never vetted. Y'all, these people are not only incompetent, they're going to get Americans killed. How many Americans are ultimately going to die because Joe Biden's administration repeatedly dropped the ball on national security in this country? Now, here's the rub. Donald Trump is probably going to get elected in 3 weeks. He will become president of the United States. And if the day after Donald Trump gets elected, there's a mass terror attack in this country, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS, the New York Times, the Washington Post, USA Today, every media outlet of the Democrats will all blame Donald Trump. This administration, the Biden-Harris administration, has screwed all of this up. Drones are flying over our military bases. We've got balloons traversing the United States with all sorts of military intelligence sensors. We got the Chinese buying land near military installations in this country. And we've got a terrorist who came into this country, they claimed was vetted, and it turns out he wasn't. And on top of that, millions of illegal aliens, some of them with ties to ISIS, crossing our southern border, being led into this country. All happening under the Biden administration. There will be no accountability from the press. There will be no accountability from Democrats. The only way to get accountability is from voters in November. That's it. Only the voters can do this. Only the voters. Because the media right now, they picked a side by and large. The American Press Corps has picked a side. And the side they've picked is making this country more dangerous. The side they've picked has made us less safe here and abroad. I find it very notable that in Gallup's polling, a majority of Americans believe the Republican Party will keep Americans safe from foreign turmoil, not the Democrats. And it's stuff like this. We've got drones infiltrating American airspace, and the military's like, well, we can't shoot them down. They're not an imminent threat. I would treat them as an imminent threat. The commander-in-chief would back you up, or at least he should. The fact that Joe Biden didn't, that he wouldn't, that he's nowhere to be found, it's just further damning indictment on the incompetence of this administration. When you have a dementia patient in charge who cannot be fully engaged, American lives are on the line, and this is a dangerous thing. This is so dangerous. And so many members of the media are so worried about Donald Trump, so scared of Donald Trump, they're willing to let all of these things slide to protect their own precious. What about your retirement nest egg? What about your finances? What about all that? They don't care about that. Swiss America has been the trusted leader in precious metals for 40 years, and they've been warning people about a secret war on cash for some time. If you're interested in safeguarding your hard-earned cash from the secret war on cash, you need their free report. Look, they're rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. They can educate you on protecting your assets in their report. It takes less than 15 minutes to read about this secret war on cash. You can get it in your mail. All you do to get it for free. Call or text 800-289-2646. The all-out war on cash, digital currencies are included in this. It's growing. So get and read the Secret War on Cash report. It's completely free. Just mention Eric, E-R-I-C-K, when you call or text 800-289-2646. That's 800-289-2646. You get the free report. You just text my name, Eric, or call and mention me. But if you don't like people like me, you just text Eric, and they send you back the link. You put in your contact info. They send you the report. 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. Message and data rates may apply. All right, y'all. I timed that perfectly because Jim would have no idea because I'm in my main office and he's in the studio running the board. My college student just showed up. She brought me some coffee. So I was talking to her and I came back and the music had already started. I'm like, okay, has the little liner already played and I should be speaking, or did we just come back? What is So I was like, wait, I know this song. It's about to start the beat, and that's when Jim plays. But I almost was late for the return of the segment. And I wouldn't have even heard Jim say, "Are you there?" And then it would have caused all sorts of problems and panic. So it works out. My daughter stopped by with a cup of coffee for me. So when we get into the next commercial break, I'll pop my head back in and finish our conversation about her day at school. Now, I got to move on because we got other stuff to talk about. And I want to talk to you about the Washington Post right now. So the New York Times is reporting on the Washington Post. The CEO of the Washington Post has elevated deal making to a top priority. Jeff Bezos wants to grow the business, including through acquisitions. He took over in January. He told confidants that he had a mandate to grow the newspaper, including through acquisitions. In recent months, the company's head of corporate development has met with a variety of technology and media companies exploring deals that could help the Washington Post expand its revenue and subscriptions. I have a suggestion for the Washington Post. As a longtime subscriber who canceled my subscription, I can tell the Washington Post how to boost subscriptions and revenue. Stop being a terrorist mouthpiece. If the Washington Post wants to grow revenue and subscriptions, it should stop being a terrorist mouthpiece. Ever since its supreme editor, Hassan Nasrallah, was killed by the Israelis, things have just taken a turn for the worse at the Washington Post. These people openly root for the extermination of Jews, and they openly root for terrorists. That is the foreign page of the Washington Post. They've been trying to undermine the leadership of the organization. These are deeply hostile anti-Semites. It's like CBS News. CBS News has allowed the Hamasniks to run the place over, and the Washington Post says, I canceled my subscription, y'all. I'm not exaggerating that. I had a long-time subscription to the Washington Post. And earlier this year, I canceled it because the Washington Post has become a propagandist for Hamas and Hezbollah. If they want to clean that up, they've always been liberal. And their local coverage is hyper-progressive. But the Washington Post has always done a pretty fair job in covering foreign affairs, but not anymore. They are just an apologist for terrorism, and they have deeply stupid people there as well. I mean, they're not a credible organization with Jen Rubin, who for a long time they branded her as some sort of conservative columnist, and she never has been, never was, never will be. And I assume she generates a lot of traffic, but it's traffic because of so many people coming to realize, oh my gosh, they're paying someone to be this stupid. The Washington Post at one point tried to hire me. They wanted me to do a subscription newsletter for them. And I said no, because I will not be dependent on a progressive publication like the Washington Post for my long-term growth, because I could say something that offends them and they could cancel me. You know, those of you who subscribe to my newsletter right now, if you text DATA to 33777 and you get a paid subscription, you help make me uncancelable. These people would have canceled me. If the Washington Post wants to improve its revenue, stop being apologists for terror groups, and that's exactly what they are. They might as well know it. When we come back, wait until you hear about the trans teacher.